In this video, how to become a Mexican citizen through naturalization. If you've ever dreamed of getting that Mexican passport, this video is for you. We're going to break down the exact path of how to get Mexican citizenship, how to go from a resident to a citizen and passport holder. Okay, so first let's talk about eligibility. To apply for Mexican citizenship via naturalization, you generally need to have lived in Mexico as a legal resident for at least 5 years. This duration reflects a commitment to the country, ensuring that applications are not just tourists, but are genuinely integrating into Mexican society. However, there are exceptions to this rule that can shorten this waiting period. Here's a couple of them. So if you're married to a Mexican citizen or you have a Mexican child, this period can be reduced to 2 years. Similarly, if you're a national from a Latin American country or from the Iberian Peninsula, you only need to reside in Mexico for 2 years before you can apply for citizenship. This reflects Mexico's cultural ties with these regions, making citizenship more accessible to those who share a common heritage or cultural background. Now, you might be wondering, what if I wasn't born in Latin America, but I have, a Guatemalan passport from my parents? That should still work because you're a Latin American citizen by birth, by origen. So that should still work. Okay. So typical path is 5 years of residency to citizenship, but can be shortened to 2 years to citizenship in a number of different cases. Okay. And if you want to book a call with My Latin Life, we can kind of look at your holistic situation and build a plan to get you Mexican citizenship as quickly as possible. There's a link in the description. Cool. So before you can apply for citizenship, you must demonstrate that you're integrated into Mexican society. This involves proving your proficiency in Spanish, which is not just about speaking the language, but also understanding it at a conversational level. You'll need to pass a test that assesses your language skills, ensuring that you can communicate effectively in your day-to-day life in Mexico. Alongside language proficiency, you also need to show an understanding of Mexican history and culture. This doesn't mean you be like a historian, but you do need to be familiar with key aspects of Mexican history, from pre-Columbian civilizations to modern Mexican politics, Mexican Revolution, all that stuff. There's an exam for this as well, where you might be asked about historical events, cultural practices, or even the significance of national holidays. Now, a word on the Mexico citizenship test: people report that it's actually pretty hard, that it's significantly harder in other countries. For example, in Paraguay, the test is pretty easy. In Spain, the test is pretty easy. But in Mexico, the test is pretty hard. There are study materials out there, but just want you to know, it's not like a piece of cake. You really do need to study. You really do need to know Spanish pretty well. So it's not just like a formality. Like I do know people who were who said, you know what, I give up. I'm just not going to pass the test. So that's something to consider. If I was to write the test, I'm pretty sure I'd pass it with a little bit of study. But for people whose Spanish is pretty bad or whatever, just, it's something to consider there. Okay, now let's talk about the paperwork, which is quite extensive. So the first step is to complete the DNN3 application form, which can be downloaded from the Secretariat of Foreign Affairs website, the SRE. This form is crucial as it's your formal request for naturalization. You'll need to provide copies of your current residency card, proving your legal status in Mexico for the required duration. Your passport is also a necessity, and they're going to take copies of every single page of your passport. They're going to check the stamps in your passport. They're going to make sure that the stamps basically match up with what you corroborate as the amount of time that you spend in Mexico. I guess we haven't talked about it yet, but there is a physical presence requirement in the 2 years leading up to applying for citizenship. So we'll come back to that in a second. But just know that it's not just self-reported. They're also going to take a look at your passport and make sure that your stamps make sense. If your birth certificate isn't in Spanish, it must be translated by an official translator and apostille, which is a process of authentication for use in Mexico. You're also going to need a clean criminal record or a certificado de no antecedentes penales, and this is mandatory to show that you haven't committed any crimes in Mexico. You'll also need to submit passport photos, and lastly, there's a sworn statement required detailing your entries and exits from Mexico over the past 2 years to confirm that you've met the residency requirements. So what are the residency requirements? Basically, you need to have not been outside of Mexico for more than 6 months in the 2 years leading up to citizenship. Okay? In other words, you need to spend 18 months during a 24-month period in Mexico. Okay? So for the people who are on a 5-year path to citizenship, there's no physical presence requirements for those first 3 years. There's only physical presence requirements for the 2 years leading up to citizenship, where they need to see 18 months. Okay? So this kind of works out for people who want to get residency. They can work towards permanent residency with no physical presence requirements. And then, once you have permanent residency, once you've been, a resident for 3+ years, you don't have to become a citizen right away, but you can kind of keep this idea in your back pocket and say, if at any point I'm down to do 18 months in a 24-month period in Mexico, I can sort of plan to do that with an eye to getting citizenship in the future. So we have lots of people, they got Mexican permanent residency, they're still living in the US or they're living, somewhere else in the world, but they have that Mexico residency and they know that at any point, if they want to sort of pull the trigger and get the citizenship process started, they just have to, start living in Mexico and be there for 18 months in a 24-month period. Hopefully that makes sense. So once you've gathered all these documents, you'll submit your application to the SRE. Depending on where you live in Mexico, you might need to go to Mexico City or visit a regional office. Here you might also sit for the Spanish and cultural knowledge tests. If you don't pass these tests on the first attempt, you have up to 3 tries to succeed. So hopefully that provides some relief if you're still mastering the language or learning about Mexican culture. And by the way, there are some books and study guides out there. Now, why go through all this trouble? The benefits of Mexican citizenship are substantial. One of the primary advantages is the right to vote in Mexican elections, also to have unrestricted property ownership. You can have property in the restricted zones. As a naturalized citizen, you can own property in the restricted zones, such as areas near the coast or the borders, without needing to set up a trust or fideicomiso, which can be both costly and complex. Also, no more annual visa renewals. As a citizen, you don't have to worry about your immigration status each year, which simplifies life significantly. Travel also becomes easier, as a Mexican passport can grant visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to numerous countries, enhancing your mobility. Maybe that means visa-free Russia, visa-free Iran, greater access to Dubai, 180 days visa-free in Dubai versus I believe it's 60 days for Americans. We've talked about this in other videos. We've talked about Mexico's visa-free access in other videos. We've also talked about the benefits of any second passport, right? Because there's the benefits of the Mexican passport specifically, and then there's the benefits of any second passport. And having any second passport is huge. We always recommend people get to get any second passport you can, even if it's tier B, tier C, whatever, as long as it's, not on a sanctions list or something, you might as well get it. But the Mexican passport specifically will also give you tons of benefits. It's something that you can potentially pass down to your kids and grandkids, even if they weren't born in Mexico. It can create benefits all over Latin America, where maybe they consider you like a Latin American citizen, similar to what we were talking about before with the accelerated path to citizenship. Could make it easier to open bank accounts around the world, especially if you're an American. So there's really a lot of benefits, and it's a good thing to have. Okay. However, the journey to citizenship isn't without its challenges. The process can be bureaucratic, with varying interpretations of the law depending on where you apply. It might take several months to a year to complete, depending on the efficiency of the office handling your case and the completeness of your application. And by the way, My Latin Life, we're a full-scale immigration, visa, second passport firm. We've helped lots of people, dozens of people, get Mexican passports via naturalization, via parents, all different paths to the Mexican passport and to Mexico residency. We don't charge too much money, so I highly recommend working with ourselves or another law firm. This is something you really don't want to do by yourself, because when you work with someone like us, we can make the process be a lot faster, remove all the guesswork, avoid the common pitfalls, and overall increase the likelihood of success. Okay? Given these complexities, many find consulting with an immigration lawyer or expert invaluable. I'm telling you, compared to Mexico residency, Mexico citizenship is more nuanced, it's more involved, and there's even more value to getting someone involved. And you're going to want to get someone involved early so that we can start strategizing, so that as soon as you hit that 2-year mark, or as soon as you hit that date where you're eligible, we can start making things happen right away. If you're considering this path, remember that becoming a Mexican citizen is not just about obtaining a passport. It's about committing to the country as well. It's kind of funny to be able to say, yeah, I'm Mexican, and people look at you and maybe you don't look Mexican. It's like a good thing, right? And Mexico's not just like a paper residency type of country. It's a country where you really can build a new life, make lifelong connections, contribute to society, build businesses, make money. I think it's one of the best lifestyle countries in the world. Probably the best country for lifestyle in the Americas. I mean, what other country in the Americas has a better lifestyle than Mexico? I think Mexico is probably the best. So it's a really good place to get citizenship. In conclusion, while the road to Mexican citizenship through naturalization requires patience, it's going to take time, requires preparation, requires a bit of cultural immersion, and a good amount of studying, by the way, but the rewards are huge. If you're ready to take this journey, we wish you all the luck and success in becoming a part of this incredible nation. Again, you can book a call with us, link in the description, to become our client, and we can help you wherever you're at, whether you're trying to get residency, trying to get citizenship, trying to build your portfolio of passports and citizenships around the world, lower taxes, all that good stuff. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe for more immigration insights, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for updates. And if you have your own story about applying for Mexican citizenship, if you've done the test, for example, or anything that comes to mind, would love to hear your comments. So drop a comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.